it's time to start talking.
I think
How you
we're
doing, Ben?
we're live. I'm good, Daryl. How are you?
That's right. So yeah, I'm Daryl.
I'm
That's
Ben.
and we're live. It's really creative. It's a really creative, fun way to just label it. But hey, for right now, you know, this is what we're doing. And I think the
Yep.
topic we're going to talk about today ties right in very well with, in fact, you know, how come this is true. So can you hear me okay?
I can hear you really well.
Okay, good. I need to make sure I move my microphone maybe in a better spot. So I talk loud. It's usually not a problem. So we phrase the title today in a tribute and a tip of the hat to Mr. Ben Urban in the way that he is so eloquent and verbose, and how words just flow off your tongue onto pen and paper and help us all be so happy on Facebook. So
And when I'm writing, I think of you doing that, Daryl, with your voice,
you do.
sounding all
If I can
Victorian.
inspire you, young sir, there's actually a guy on TikTok.
Elizabethan speak
There,
over there.
there's okay, complete rabbit trail already. We're doomed. This is going to be something. There's a guy on TikTok. Don't remember his handle or anything, but he's got the hair, the beard, and he's a Gen Xer. I'm a Gen Xer. Okay, I'm like the youngest or the oldest Gen Xer, I suppose. I just barely beat out being a boomer. Um, and he talks about Gen X shit, but he does it in a Lord of the Rings old English, and he's got the Lord of the Rings background. It's like young Swire. There are so many things that you don't know of the life, and it's hilarious. So anyway, what are we talking about today, Ben?
Expression sans fear.
Now, I actually never knew what the fuck sans meant before I started reading your stuff. I had to go look it up. So, in case there's anybody else who hasn't quite figured it out yet, what in the world does that mean?
Sans is pretty much a fancy way of saying without
I like it. Might as well be a
or
little bit
free
different,
from.
right? So, expression free from fear. So, it really, this feels like a really natural progression of what we've been doing. So this is our like third live together so far,
I
fourth
believe so.
maybe, right?
Or,
And
yeah.
when we first got together and started talking about, hey, should we do this or not? All right, well, let's do this thing. It was my heart, I think it's yours as well, to really just sort of go after, okay, after deconstruction, trying to rebuild your worldview or how you want to move in the world, and just the idea of what does it take to be gracious and loving and fluid, and just like sort of the opposite of a lot of the Christian shit that they said they're loving, but it was hiding. There was some murky stuff hiding underneath the surface.
They said it was unconditional, but there's a
Yeah,
lot of
that's right.
conditions
That's right. The most conditional, unconditional love you could ever hope for. So we
terms and
talked about.
conditions apply.
I know. So we talked about one of the first things we talked about was choice and how we have choice, and then we talked about curiosity and how curiosity plays into that. And so that really leads next to expression. And let's talk a little bit about, I think two things come to mind for me to chew on for the next hour. Really, why is expression important? What are the benefits of feeling free to express? And then what about fear? Because I don't know about you, I think a lot of people, fear can be one of the biggest barriers to like really being authentic and genuine in yourself and expressing whatever it is you want to express in the world, right?
Absolutely.
So, Ben, and then for both of us, so I think for me, let's talk about even just what we're doing right now. Right before we came on, we were chit chatting, and it really just dawned on me, doing this live thing at all was a major move for me in stepping out to do and to express and having to overcome fear. So I want to get practical in the midst of all this as well. How do we practically do it? But so for me, this live with you is me living this out. And I think you have some experiences with it too. For you, where was that moment in time where you said you crossed a line and you decided to express and deal with that fear?
Well, honestly, I kind of wrestled with it for a little while because I'm definitely one of those types of people that I am my own worst enemy or my biggest critic
Yeah.
because I just tend to think that I ramble, and if it was given, if it was just me on here, I think I'd be a little more, I'd be nervous and would just like fall on top of my words constantly.
Right.
and I just wouldn't do a good job. And that's like what I'm telling myself in my head, and I've been told by multiple people that I do fine with these kind of things, but I continued to tell myself, no, I'm better at just expressing myself through the written word.
Right.
I can put my ideas together. I can, edit it and look back on it before I post it. So, I know that I'm putting out my best version of what, I'm trying to do. Where being live and doing this, speaking on the camera, you're on the fly. Everything's
Oh
very. I
yeah.
mean, we're not scripted. We're not. We don't have a plan really in order. We just have an idea and then we kind of just roll with it. So I'm really glad to have you with me, and the way you and I have come together with this was really cool because we both were featured on Freeology Friday
Yeah. Right.
in separate ones where you were on your own with Derek and Aaron, and then I was also on my own with Derek and Aaron, and then
Yep.
there was one where Aaron was out for some reason. He had something going on, and we were filling in for him with Derek, and so it was the three of us.
Right.
And it was Derek that said, "You guys should do your own thing together because you have this chemistry. We've just seen that tonight." And
Yeah. Yeah.
so we both thought that was really neat, and I'll tell you, like that night, I thought, yeah, that would be a really great idea. I got off the live and was talking to Beth about it. I was like, that would be really awesome if Daryl and I did that. I wonder if he really feels that way too.
Right. Right. And so I mean,
he
even
did. And we kept being told by Derek and Aaron that
I know.
you got to do this. You guys got to get going. You got to do this. So okay,
And
but so by popular demand, and hearing other people saying once the word got out that we're going to start doing this, we started getting the feedback from others, and it was really cool. Like, we can't wait to hear you. This is going to be great.
so it's interesting. So even right there, even that little nugget that you threw out, sometimes overcoming fear it's a group project. It doesn't you don't have to go it alone. We don't have to do something like this alone. Get together with someone else who, be compatible with you. But then also just the encouragement of, other people saying, "Hey, you can. Hey, you should. I see this." But I think it's interesting. It speaks to the progression of how when you express yourself and you push through little barriers of fear, then bigger doors open with maybe a
Yeah.
little bit more fear behind it. But if you've built this little habit, so people can help you do it. But for both of us, we overcame the obstacle of just doing this at all, joining Aaron and Derek.
Yeah.
And that little bit of expression and overcoming that level of fear, that does that. So for you also, I was thinking like with your writing, I'm really curious because I remember when you started to do it, and I'm not sure if you were when did you start doing the writing on Facebook, your posts and your musings?
Well, I mean, it started a long time ago, even before I mean, early on in my deconstruction.
Okay.
I started actually by basing my posts on passages from scripture. Like, I was doing this
Oh, that's
project
right.
where I
Yep.
was going through all the gospels, like all four gospels, and then the book of Acts, because like the focus was like do all these historical narratives and just cover all those, and like kind of doing my deconstructive interpretation of what I'm learning from these passages or what I'm gathering from these passages. And I was doing that for a long time, and I got all the way through the five books there, the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and Acts. And I'd considered continuing on, but then but I realized, over a number of days that I took a break for about a week
Yeah.
because I didn't feel motivated to continue doing that, doing it that way, even though I was getting really good feedback from people already, based on that. Um,
Yeah.
I also got some pushback from believers who thought that I was on dangerous ground and all that.
Right.
And
Right.
that didn't bother me. I didn't care about that. But I remember thinking, like, do I need this? Do I really need to confine myself to this in order to have inspiration and to like, you know, can I just, dwell in the spirit or whatever, and just see what happens and not like be basing it on what I'm reading here and then what I take from what I'm reading here. And I remember just starting to do my own thing. Like I'll just cut out the whole devotional aspect of it. I'm just gonna just write off the cuff, and it just started happening. Became a daily thing, just writing for myself instead of just sticking to this script or this project that I was really excited to be doing. Now
Yeah.
it's been I think it's been about 3 years now, or four. Yeah, 4 years. I
When
think
did you start
about
to
four
actually
years
start to do it
doing it.
consistently and ramp up on it? When was that?
I think like midway through 2019,
Okay.
stopped using scripture as any kind of focal point and just started writing freehand, basically.
Yeah, that's when I
free,
started
free
picking up
mind,
on what you
just
were doing. Yeah.
and yeah, I think that's about the time you also started seeing it.
Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting. I think a lot of what this is, so even in deconstructing, there is a real sense in that expression has an important place in growth in general. I think you're never going to really grow if you don't start to actually take action and do things in your life that push you. When you start to take the ideas you have in your mind on what's important to you, what you want to accomplish, who are you, how do you want to show up in the world, so starting to move forward in that expression is just monumental, because of what you were just saying, you started in your comfort zone, maybe even started nicely within the box of what was expected of a good seminary student to
Right.
do. Let's go through the gospels, let's start creating my own commentary on the gospels,
And
which is what everyone does.
honestly, Daryl, I mean, anybody want to chime in and correct me, but I feel like most people, when they are deconstructing, when they're leaving their faith and embracing a new path, or you know, uh, keeping their options open, um, it is a transition. It's a steady
Right.
kind of journey out of there. It's not like this cold turkey. I'm just done. I'm out. I'm just gonna completely like um, what's the word? Discard everything or denounce it just
Right.
outright, and then I'm totally off the board, kind of thing. I think everybody, because they're holding on to something that was so important to them for so long, and it's like
Yeah.
you have to kind of wean yourself off.
No, absolutely. And
And
it's
it's
even
healthy. It's
interesting.
healthy because it shows too. It almost gives you like evidence for your detractors later on, showing them this isn't something I just like decided on the fly. Like, oh, it's the new fad, so I'm
Right.
just gonna go with it. No, it's something I was working through. It was something I
Yeah,
was doing.
it's not just, "Oh, that Christian hurt my feelings. I'm gonna leave God now."
Yeah,
No.
right.
None of that.
These bullshit like excuses that they give for like, oh well, you were never really a Christian,
Right,
or
right, right.
oh, you're just mad at the church. Don't be mad at God because the church made you upset. It's like it's not. It's nothing to do with that. It's
Yeah, but, even in all
it
of
might
that.
have factored in, but it wasn't the final thing. It might have played a part of the catalyst in me going down that road, but ultimately leaving that movement and embracing these other pathways had nothing to do with like, oh well, I was hurt and my feelings were hurt and all
Yeah.
this stuff. I mean, or I mean, it was more just like once I gave myself the permission to ask whatever questions I wanted and not be satisfied with mediocre answers, then
Yeah.
it just kept flowing like that, and I'm
Well,
sure
I
that's
mean, and
how it
think
was for
about it.
you.
It really, all of it, it's just like with life, so many different things we go through. There's different ways to look at it. You can take the same event and look at it through a different lens. And so maybe in a lot of ways, what we're even stumbling into here is you can see our deconstruction and our spiritual growth graduating from Christianity to a, not to insult anybody, I feel like it's a deeper spirituality, a more encompassing, more embracing, a more holistic, a more healthy, a happier spirituality. But it comes with expressing. So you have these questions, but when it comes to being able to say something and put it out there, ask the question.
Right.
It was the power. I mean, how we came together and started to get to know each other was through the religious trauma group that Aaron and I started. And just without a doubt, the number one most powerful thing that group does, it's still going under the different leadership, it gives people a safe place to express what they're going through. And every time somebody new came into the group, which was like, 25 to 50 a week, just massive unloading, massive just people expressing things they were never able to say out loud.
Right.
And it's interesting because I think fear plays a part in that, and it's not a bad thing. Fear is not bad, and so often I think we have a hard time with our emotions, and there's some emotions we like, and some emotions that we like to put away and suppress and not have to deal with. And for sure, one of the biggest things I'm learning and coming out of Christianity is just being able to be present and fully experience all these emotions. So fear has a place. We know this, right? The classic example is if you're out hunting and you hear a rustle in the bushes, it is much better to be instantly terrified and be wrong and it was only a little ground squirrel than to not be terrified and be right and it's a bear or a lion and you die. So, in a very primal way, fear is important. And coming out of Christianity, that the trauma group, to go back to that example, it was safe. So it's not just go express yourself and who gives a shit. Maybe you can get to the place where you can do that, right? But it's smart to heed fear, especially in the beginning, especially if you're coming out of a toxic, controlling, abusive situation. If you're coming out of an abusive relationship with what Christianity is, it's in a relationship with an abusive imaginary deity, with abusive people for most of us, and fear is there to protect you. So listen to it. There's a place to listen to it, but you just don't want to be consumed by it. And so having that safe place in that trauma group to express these things, I mean, that I've said it before and I'll say it again, that group helped me in my growth and in my deconstruction. I started the group, I was still sort of like Team Jesus and still really sort of holding on still a little bit and like, oh yes, all this trauma, but I was trying to hold on. And hearing these other people do express what they went through and seeing the pattern, seeing the similarities, that helped me completely let go and walk away, which is when my healing really began. So I think, fear is important, and we don't want to just say, oh, fear is bad. So maybe it's like, without fear, I mean, we could have made it a little more in depth, maybe without fear controlling you, but that's not a good title.
Well, you make really good points there. You want to be cautious because it's not something you want to just dive into or dive out of, just too quickly or with no control of like you want to make sure that you're strategizing well. It's like if you're breaking out of prison, you're not gonna just run for the wall, just like erratically. And
that's a good analogy.
On your way out. You're gonna like dig a hole out, like and under cover of night and do something strategic. Take time. Don't just try to just be crazy. You have to have a plan. And you have to be patient with yourself, be patient with your surroundings, be patient with the circumstances that you're dealing with. But I do have to say, while we're talking about metaphors, you bringing up the rustling in the forest, for some reason that brought to mind Pascal's wager. Like, you want to be cautious.
Yeah.
Because if there is this wrathful God, it's better to just believe that it's real and then find out it isn't than the opposite. And for me, I mean, I I don't want to live that way. Like, even if
Right.
there's the chance that there is some intergalactic despot ruling over the universe, that doesn't mean I want to have anything to do with it. I'm not going to just,
Right.
pay it any mind just because there's the possibility that it's there. It's going to have to destroy me because I don't morally, I just could not accept spending an eternity with a being like that.
Right. So you get to a place where you overcome the fear, or you measure it out and you say, okay, this fear is misplaced, or I'm going to push past this fear of this wrathful God. And then you get on the other side and you weren't struck by lightning. Yeah, I'm
No,
okay.
no spiking today.
I love how Aaron said he went to Aaron Tomlinson, friend of ours. If you guys don't know him, how he went to push that envelope. He went to um, a new age fair, whatever it was called, and he had some readings done, and he was afraid that he'd get demons, and he wagered it out in his mind. If well, I know how to cast them out, so let's just give this a try to see what. So, but still, you take it into account. So, fear can be your friend as long as we're the ones driving it. If we're in control, we're making the decisions, we're following ourselves and what we feel we need to do, and take counsel of the fear we may feel, or maybe bring other people in and help. You know what I mean? But then there's a place in which fear no longer you need to push past it, right? So
Right.
it's got a very little window. It's got a small way in which fear can be helpful. But I think overall it plays way too big a part in our lives. So that's for true. So yeah. I got someone jumped on and said, am I able to ask a question?
Absolutely.
Amanya, I'm going to mispronounce your name, so I'm not going to try to say it. Yes, type your question. We're going to keep chatting. Type your question. We'll talk. Why not? That's what this is about. So you have and even for me, and like when I first, I'm going to be a little bit more vulnerable here and be a little more honest with what's going on in the background with me coming to this place, doing these videos with you. When I first did my very first one I did with Aaron and Derek, I was very careful that the topic didn't push the edge, but didn't that wasn't so far gone. So we talked about embracing your power. And I could talk about that and still stay within a quasi Christian whatever, and not push too far, right? So I hedged my bets a little bit, and I was just sort of waiting to see the people I know on Facebook that are they going to come out of the woodwork and attack me? What might happen? Um, and full disclosure, before I went on and decided to do this with you, I found a way to, with honesty and integrity, I blocked a whole shit ton more people off my accounts. And I to me, so that was a valid use of fear. And it's not that I'm afraid of what they're going to say. It was actually a lot more tactical because it's wagering out the reality of the relationships I had with them and what I wanted those relationships to be and what they are capable of handling. So I found a way to truthfully block them. And that gave me the freedom to then come out and be a lot more open, knowing they still very well might come back around and whatever. I'm totally fine with that. But it's just interesting. So using fear as an ally as you step out and start to express yourself more and express yourself more.
So somebody's writing all kinds of BS on here.
Oh, yes. Okay. So we've got some people. Let's do this. Let's block. Oh, that's a YouTube. Okay. We'll block that person. Here's another one. Someone's just saying some terrible things about you.
Yeah. I mean,
Let's just block. That's YouTube. YouTube is a crazy thing. So I'm not sure who this other person is. Those are two different people. So if this other person, they're all YouTube. So YouTube. Well, YouTube. I thought Facebook was bad. So okay, that's fine. We block those people who are being ridiculous. And if the other person wants to ask a serious question, that's always totally fine. So, what's the next thing I want to talk about? So that's in that expression. So what are the other, when it comes to the power of expressing yourself, what have you experienced in your life as like you're just starting to ramp up and do 2-a-days now. Woohoo, go bed, morning and evening. I got to be on Facebook more, damn it. I was trying to get off that platform.
Right.
But what I mean, so what's some of the things that you feel that you've gained or learned, and as you've expressed yourself more and stepped out more?
Um, that's a good question. I just feel like I've really been able to put myself out there um, in a way that I can be authentic, and I really like the responses I'm getting to that.
Yeah.
Because I have people telling me it's like that they've really been changed, and they're very inspired by what I'm doing. And a lot of times there's a lot of synchronicity involved. Like I get comments like, I was just thinking about this topic today, and you're speaking on it, and the way you're speaking on it just meets me where I needed it to be, or where I was at and where I'm at. And I mean, it's really powerful stuff. So I love it. It's how expression can be a communal thing and not just an individual thing.
Yeah.
And another great thing about Facebook and social media in general is we can record all these things. We can record these live videos. We can record our posts, our written stuff, and it keeps a log of all that. And so you're able to look back and kind of uh, take an inventory of your progress
Yep.
as you're going, and other people can see like where you've come from. And when people ask like, I'd love to hear your testimony on what brought you to this place,
Yeah.
and they can just, if they want to, they can do like a deep dive into like all these posts and get an idea of like
Yeah.
where I was coming from and where I've come to. And it's really neat. It's really awesome that we can do that.
Yeah. I mean, so you track your own journey, you are helping other people. And so, and that's just goes along with the whole vulnerability. Brene Brown, she's my gal. That idea that we love to see other people be vulnerable, but it is the thing that we are each the most afraid of, that being vulnerable. And so, yeah, there's a lot more to it than just your own personal growth.
Yeah.
But then, when you do that, and then you've really genuinely just speaking your truth and expressing yourself, you're helping other people, but that has a wonderful symbiotic boomerang effect. It can, right?
Right.
But then, so that almost dovetails really nicely into the thing that is the most fear inducing, is the idea of, what are people going to think? What do I do with people when they don't like this expression that I have, or they criticize me, or they put me down? So there's a sense in which using fear to be safe, to begin the baby steps, to begin that expression, so you can grow. But then at some point, so like for me, I know there's going to come a time when this stuff gets bigger and it goes out, and people who I care about, who don't really know the depth to which I'm, a liberal Christian, well, then I'll get the blowback, right? I know I'm ready inside of me to do that, right? So it's helpful, I think, to talk a little bit about that. How do you personally? I'll ask you this question, and then I'll throw some stuff in. And if you don't want to answer it, just pass it back to me. But when you get that pushback from, strangers can be simple, like those little whatever the hell they were on YouTube. Most of you, if you're on Facebook, didn't see it, but just YouTube thing popping up being complete noodle brains. I don't know what the hell that was about.
Yeah,
With
because
some
the messages don't
spammers,
even make sense. It's like
spammers from another country trying to hack or do something.
right.
That's easy. That's just like, get the fuck out of here. I don't, whatever. But when it's someone that you care about their opinion and they come against you, what are some things that you've done, Ben, that have helped you deal with that fear and overcome that?
Well, I mean, I look at it, Daryl, like especially if it's somebody that I've known and have been friends with at one time or another, even if we don't talk anymore or anything, and they come out of the woodwork and are, expressing their concern about, what has happened to you. I remember when
Right.
you were doing this and doing that, and you're all about you're sold out for Christ, and now what's going on? What is this? Like, I'm praying for you. I just want you to know
Right.
I'm praying for you. I'm really concerned about you. uh, what happened? That's always the what happened. What
Yeah.
happened? What brought you to this line of thinking? And at this point, I don't feel the need to argue with them or get into like a
Yeah.
shouting match. I'm just very cordial about it, and I explain to them just outright like what it was that did it, and like why I'm not convinced, and why I feel like the path I'm on now is definitely a stronger path for me from a peace of mind, peace of body, peace of spirit kind of
Hmm.
level. Um, and if they continue on, so a lot of the time that'll kind of end the conversation. They'll say
Right.
something back like, "Well, I just want you to know that I care about you, and I hope you figure this out and you turn back. But if not, it's what it is. And,
Right.
just know that I care and I'm praying for you. I'm praying for you." It's like, okay, I thank you. I get that. Um, if that's where it ends, fine. That's good.
Yeah.
I haven't. Fortunately, I haven't dealt with a lot of like ongoing like people trying to kind of bait
Right.
me into arguments or
Right.
um, debates over this, and it's just like, oh, good, I'm glad. Some people are a little more pushy than others, but
Right.
I'm able to keep my composure and just continue dialoguing with them, because for me it's like I don't care if I win them to my side. I know that's probably not going to happen, and I'm not interested in doing it anyway.
Yeah.
I'm just sharing because they're asking. I'm happy to answer their questions, but I can tell when it's
Okay.
like a thing where they're baiting me and trying to be like, well, that doesn't seem very logical, or that doesn't seem very you know like
Yeah.
I can show you where you're on the wrong path here, and if you just give me a chance to explain it to you and stuff. And it's just like, okay, I mean, you can talk if you want, you can write whatever you want. I can't promise I'm going to be interested in what you have to say. It's just what it is, because I've been there, and I don't plan to go back. I don't know
Right.
what it
Right.
is you're going to share with me that's different than I've heard from the foremost experts on this stuff, in seminary. And,
Right.
it's like, what makes you think your presentation is suddenly going to just like take the blinders off? And I'm going to be like, oh my God, what have I been doing? Yeah.
Right. Right. So it's interesting. So what I think I hear you saying is, just in your experience, tell me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like there's some values that you have that you use to be able to help you navigate that fear and overcome it. So you said something along the line of, you value just sharing your journey with them, and it's just a conversation. Like, you, inside of yourself, the path you took, and you've worked out all of those questions, through other smaller expressions and question answering and asking and getting the information. So you have enough reservoir of self-confidence. That's probably a big piece of it, right?
Yeah.
And then just knowing and trusting yourself. We've talked about that before too, and I think that's what I'm hearing you say. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. Like I'm getting pretty good at detecting whether a conversation is going to become like just this exercise in fear mongering and proselytizing pretty quickly. Um, and I'd like to believe that most people, when they're reaching out and asking these questions, they mean it with good intention. Like they really are concerned, because based on their worldview,
Yeah.
I'm in trouble.
Oh
So
yeah.
so they want to figure it out. But then I can tell when it's just somebody who's like kind of heavy fundamentalist, and they're just like, they open up the conversation with, you need Jesus, I'm praying for your salvation, the
Right.
devil's got a hold on you. And it's just like, oh God, like this
Yeah.
is not the way to get anybody to rethink anything. If you're just
So
gonna come at them with like, oh, you're just going down that primrose path of destruction.
right. And so even in that too, it's like there's not even any fear anymore. A lot of people like that, there is no fear. You're trying to induce fear in me. I've done the work. I've grown. The healing and the joy and the emotional well-being that I have, which I didn't have even before that, and I can see the people in that circle and that religion didn't really have it. So there is no even fear. You would be able, like, that fear's not even there, right?
Right.
So if you don't, and for you, your value is, you want to have the conversation and who you want to be as a person and how you want to sort of answer questions. But then as soon as the situation shifts and it's not your value anymore, like, I'm not arguing, it's not my place, and I don't want to argue with you if you just want to have the argument, and then you just put up that boundary. So it really is a lot of internal work. It's that healing inside, right? Am I hearing that right?
Right.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think expressing yourself, and that's how we even begin to weigh out, okay, I have this in my head. I think this is, I'm having these questions, I'm seeing this, I'm thinking this. And if you want to, I sometimes think of it as, the difference between my truth, our truth, and then is it actually more true universally? And the only way to help flesh out what's what is by expressing it. So I
Right.
have my truth, what I think, what I've gone through, what I experience, questions I have. And right now it's inside of me and it's mine, but I'm going to express it, put it out there, and then see what other people say. See, does it measure up with how other people see it? Or you can even put it out there compared to maybe scientific standards or what other experts have said about this, right? But you don't know until you put it out there. It's only going to be stuck in your skull and only be yours. And you don't really know how accurate it is and how trustworthy it is until you start to put it out there and measure it against. And all of that too. And what I wanted to come around on, and maybe now's a good time to do it, is talking about feedback. So that fear comes from, what am I going to get back when I put this out?
Yeah.
So doing the work within ourselves around receiving feedback well, you know? And so feedback is a term that we all hear. It's in corporate trainings, it's in work. But when I went through my coaching certifications, the one thing I learned, and it's just really true, rings true, people, especially if you're in leadership, you're trained in how to give feedback to someone. But really, no one really gets training in how to receive it well. What am I going to do with this? And how do I receive what they're saying in a way that's effective or useful or whatever? So that's something I think it might be helpful to talk about that a little bit. And I might give practical, what can we do practically to make it so that no matter what comes at me from other people, that I feel confident enough in myself and I sort of know what to do with it, right?
Right.
And some of it is, we already were talking about it. It really is. Is that ringing coming through? Am I hearing something? No, it's okay.
No.
Um, and so a lot of that is, I just lost my train of thought. We talked about it already. It's, how are you viewing what's coming at you? How do you perceive it? What does it mean to you? What meanings are you putting to what other people are saying or doing, right? So I'm going to move this back. I'm hearing some
Well,
rings.
I imagine that you feel the same, Daryl, but and if you don't, that's okay.
Yeah.
I feel like for me, what I do is before I release anything, of my writing, um, I need to know for myself that this is something that I'd want to be reading, something that
Hmm.
would help me where I'm at and
Right.
feeling like. So it's for me, it is a therapeutic expression. It's something that I do. I don't do it just to gain any kind of applause from an
Yeah.
alternative worldview or anything like that. I'm not trying to impress anybody. It's just for me. I'm putting it out there because it's helpful for me. and where I feel like I'm going with all this. So also with that, I'm really only interested in dialoguing with those who come on and comment, who express themselves. And I really love it when somebody
Mm,
gives me what they're feeling while they're reading what I've written.
cool.
When the
Okay.
I don't care how long the comment is, if they're sharing a story or something that while they were reading it they were thinking about this, or they were in the middle of doing this and it made them think about that, and just whatever the case is, I want to deal with people who are expressing themselves, who are being honest in their own expression. And one of the
Right.
things, one of my big pet peeves is when somebody just overloads you with a bunch of scripture verses or quotes from like dead theologians or something. That's not you sharing your own views, your own
Yeah.
thoughts, your own expressions. There's no deep thinking in that. There's no contemplating in that. Uh, that's just regurgitating from the echo chamber. It's
Right.
it's not you. You're not talking to me. You're a function speaking to me because I've upset that part in you
Right.
that has a hold on you, and that's why this is happening. I love talking to anybody, and I don't care if the person totally disagrees with me. I just want them to share their views on it and not be
Yeah.
just giving me a bunch of John 8:10 or whatever, and a lot of Matthew 5:6 or what. I don't even know what
No,
those
exactly.
verses are anymore. I can't remember any of that stuff. I'm just making a point that I don't care about that. That doesn't matter to me where I'm at. And
Right. So
that's not
yeah.
going to change my mind about something because you're sitting there. It's like it's almost treated like a hex,
Oh yeah.
like it's witchcraft almost, but in like the
Oh yeah.
Christianese way, in this
Yeah.
case. And I'm just like, I don't, you're not gonna affect me with this stuff. If anything, I forget about it the moment we're done, because I'm just like, okay, I've moved on. I'm focusing on people that really want to talk about something and are
Yep.
interested in a personal journey rather than just feeding the group consensus.
And that's perfect. So what you are just saying is you have a filter, you have a rule, you have boundaries, but when you're getting information back from people, you already know that this is the kind of information and feedback that I'm going to accept, and this is the kind that I'm just not. And so you're not just at, and I think this is something that people can take away and start to just create for themselves. The question is, what information, if someone says something to me, what are my rules for what I'm going to accept and what I'm not? You're the one that's in control. This is your life. This is your beliefs, your thoughts. If someone's coming at you and they're trying to infiltrate your brain, you're the one that has control over what am I going to let in, what am I not going to let in.
Right.
And so you have very good rules for yourself, which I think are worth mirroring. You know, do they want to have a conversation? Are they just, throwing things at me, right?
Right.
Another way that you can even see what you already said so wonderfully is that what are they asking questions genuinely, or are they just evaluating and giving their opinion and they're evaluating, right?
Right.
So even that, so if you're getting feedback from people and they're just saying, well, this is who you are, this is what that means, this is what that is, those are judgment statements.
Right.
And that's their opinion, that's them, that is what they think. So that, and you can do with that whatever the hell you want.
Right.
You can bring it in. If some people don't know that, they don't know that they have got control and they just let everything in and everything hits them and everything is emotional. But just remember, give yourself permission to put those walls up and you choose what you let in, what you don't let in.
Yeah.
Right. And so sometimes what people can say, that it's one thing that can be helpful if it's sensory based. Well, I saw when you did this, when you said these words, you had this facial expression. you know, what was going on with you, right? So if they're, and that can be valuable. So that's another way, another determination you can make. If they're trying to describe to me how I came across to them, this is helpful, especially if it's in general, it's like a conflict. Well, you made me angry. Well, that's a judgment. They're angry and they think I have a magic spell to go poof, you're angry. But then it can be helpful. Well, what did I do exactly that made you angry? What was it? Did I say something? What words did I use? So that's, asking questions back also is a good way. If you want to engage with someone, you can ask them questions, and you make it sensory based, concrete with what's going on. Well, what exactly, so you're coming at me and you're trying to save me again. What exactly did I say that was bothersome to you? And if you want to engage a person like that, right, that's not something you can do. But having your rules, having your boundaries, and realizing if are they giving you a judgment? Are they evaluating and giving you their opinion? Or are they giving you more just sensory based, concrete, this is what actually occurred? And that can be more helpful. Like, you know what I mean? Does it make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, sometimes it seems like, and it doesn't happen so much on my stuff, but I've seen
Mm-hmm.
some of our other friends who are deconstructing and are on their own journeys, have people that will constantly be chiming in, saying things that are
Right.
very like they're theologically trolling them, and it's
Right.
just so ridiculous. And it's like I almost wonder if they're just looking for somebody else that's in their camp that might also come out of the woodwork and kind of team up on this person who's just expressing themselves.
Right.
Like, oh no, this person is going out and doing their own thing, and we can't let that be. So we need to hit them with everything we got in our religious arsenal and shut them down. Even though it's usually one or two people that do that, and it's not the whole crowd. And what I've noticed is that other people, lighthearted, level-headed, well-rounded people, are coming out of the woodwork and attacking those people that are trolling and
Oh,
being,
yeah.
you know, before you even get a chance to comment yourself on these people saying something on your thing.
Yep.
One
And
of
so
your
that
friends is
speaks
gonna
to,
jump on them and be like,
it's good to have friends and
yeah,
your social media sphere that
right,
will
where
have your back,
you
right?
don't even have to say anything, and it's they're already on them. Like,
Yep.
and sometimes that
Absolutely.
happens when like it hasn't gotten into a messy place. I mean, I've had people, um, like I said before, genuinely just interested in what brought me to where I'm at now.
Yeah.
And I'll have like a friend of mine jump on and who's also in that deconstructing phase, basically come to my aid before I've even like given the impression I needed or anything. But I
Right.
appreciate it. I appreciate where they're coming from because they're protecting me. They're being protective of me. And I'm
Right.
like, okay, well, it's good to have that love because even when I was a Christian and I was writing stuff for the Lord, like not like my fellow Christian brothers and sisters never commented or cared about anything I was doing up until I started getting controversial.
Right.
And that's when like they were coming out of the woodwork. It's like, oh, so you didn't even care when I was doing the Lord's work. But now that I'm not, oh, now you're gonna jump on me about this.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Like,
And it's interesting. And so another a really big piece of this too comes back to what we already hit on when it comes to curiosity, when it comes to choosing, is just having a really good sense of who you are and having your own internal strength there, but also realizing that that's them, it's not you. And so for so many of us, especially within religious contexts, we're conditioned to be like, what other people think of you is more important than what you think about yourself.
right.
And so and that's naturally, we can actually fall into that naturally anyway, because especially as we grow up and human beings, we're social creatures, and
Yeah.
it's always fun to harken back to what the Stone Age might have been like. Good psychologists will tell us that this kind of social instinct happens. We need to stay together. We function together. My safety is in the group. And so I want to stay in good graces with the group, because together we're more likely to fend off the saber-toothed tiger. So if I'm off on my own, then I'm more likely to die,
Yeah.
but thankfully we're not there anymore. But it's like our parts of our brains don't realize that, we're in a more civilized society, sort of. But just having that separation and being able to really within yourself feel and know that their words are their words, they're
Yeah.
not yours. And even sometimes it can just be helpful for people, engage your imagination with it. I tell people, and I usually, when I coach, I have a more full, robust, fun way to engage the imagination to help people do this. But just imagine that there's a bubble around you, and it's just the kind of bubble that is just the right color. It feels comfortable. In this bubble, you feel safe. And this bubble, you have that control. It's permeable. So you can let anything in you want in, or things bounce off that you want to bounce off. And you can imagine that you see that person on the other side of your bubble. And then when they're doing what they're doing or saying what they're saying, in your mind's eye, you can imagine those words just hitting the edge of the bubble and dropping off. And so that's like a little imagination game you can play to help get your emotions to line up with that reality. The reality is, we know that that's their opinion.
Right.
That's how they see it. So whenever we can try to help take something we know is true, but embody it and make our feelings line up with that, it makes it easier to, in the moment, be able to repel that. So I think a big piece of dealing with the fear of expressing yourself is just that, knowing that that's them, that's their opinion, their words, their beliefs. They get angry, that's their emotions. Ain't mine. It's like, oh geez, you're really angry.
Right.
That's really so then I think you can blend curiosity into this. Let yourself be curious about what the fuck is this person getting all hot and bothered about. But
Yeah.
instead of being angry or being offended or whatever, you can just be like, damn, this is really interesting. I wonder what in his life is going on that makes them want to come by and need to try to put me in check, or whatever it is. So you can let curiosity be your ally, because you don't know what this person's thinking, And so there's a way that you can also bring that in, I think, as a way to help keep that separation, so you can not be afraid of what they have to say. I don't
And
know. Just some thoughts.
that's a really good thought too, because it helps to be understanding and compassionate toward those who are maybe lashing out at us.
Yeah.
It might not have anything to do with us. It probably isn't anything to do with us. We have to consider, especially the way that they come at us with all the heavy religious stuff.
Yeah.
That might be them projecting their own um, frustration uh, over how they're treated on Sunday mornings in front, with their
Yeah.
pastor screaming at them or whatever, or the pressure they get from the elders at their churches or whatever, and it's just you know feeling like they're always under the gun. Just be just the right amount of holy to fit in,
Oh
to
yeah.
continue to be part of the good team.
Yeah.
They might be fighting their own doubts and struggling with stuff that we were struggling with, and they just don't know how to handle it. They don't see any other way out, so they just double down and they get upset and they push
Yep.
back, and it's just like, you don't even know me, why are you getting so upset? And
Yeah. And that's reframing. That's
yeah,
the term. It's just, you're taking this situation. How can I look at this in a new way? What's a different way to see what's happening here? And using that creativity, that curiosity, what could it be? And and you can do what you just did. But sometimes I don't have the bandwidth to deal with all that. And so, I mean, I don't want to get myself all worked up and angry, because all that's doing is firing off a lot of extra stress chemicals in my body, which I don't really need if I'm not
Right.
in genuine danger. But I can always just be like, I had this image come up recently, and maybe this will help some people. If a child in a grocery store comes up to you and looks at you and gets all like mad like this and says, "You're a big poopy head," how would you respond? It's just you smile, laugh, maybe pat the kid on the head, and just walk away, because really, it doesn't matter what that little child thinks of you, right?
Right.
And so sometimes you can just use your imagination. So for me, sometimes I put that and I imagine that on the person. If I don't have the bandwidth to deal with you right now, and I really don't want to take my emotional energy to, I mean, I want to be compassionate, but sometimes I don't want to be. And that's actually okay. I can just be, you know what? You're just a little bit immature, and I don't care if you think your daddy can beat up my daddy. That's fine. Go on ahead. Have a nice day. Yeah. So that's whatever you want to do. You can get creative with it. Use your imagination to
Right.
help you set that boundary and separate yourself from what they think or what they want to say to you.
And that's a big kick I've actually been on with my writings lately. It's not on every one of them, but like it factors into a lot of them more recently. I like to bring up the point that it seems more that um, super religious people tend to get more bent out of shape about people who challenge those ideas than the God that they serve.
Yeah.
Because you never hear from Big Daddy. You never get his comments on your scathing critique of him.
Well, no, I'm sorry, Ben. Don't you know that person speaking has a direct line to the Almighty,
Right.
and that
And this
that's
goes to
exactly what God thinks.
battle.
Don't you know that by now?
Right. But like, why would an almighty God have to speak through people? Why? I mean, if I'm really bruising the divine ego, then why can't it get in my face and scare the shit out
Right.
of me right here and now?
Yep.
I'm putting the challenge out there. I'm issuing it, and silence,
Yep.
crickets. I mean, it's
Yep. Exactly.
and
So that's just
you'll hear, well, he's patient because of this common grace or something. Like
yeah.
there will
Yep.
be a
Yep.
time. There will be a time though.
Your time's coming.
Yeah, your time's gonna come. Yeah, laugh about
Yep.
it now. Be all heretical
Yep.
and blasphemous as you want, but you're gonna find out. And it's like, oh, am I gonna find out? Are you gonna find out, Daryl?
I have no idea, but I'm not afraid of it.
No, because it just doesn't seem logical.
Right. So even, so it's the same thing. It's like, okay, well, what are they saying? It's not logical. You know what I mean? So all these things that you can do to combat the fear, and you can help. If you don't have that, there are a lot of great YouTubers out there or TikTokers or whatever that really help bring out that logic, and this is like power to my atheist friends. They're really good at this one, right? They're really good at pulling out the logic and say, wait a second here, and cognitive distortions and biases and fallacies. It's like it can learn a lot on right thinking,
Right.
using the brain that God supposedly gave us.
And that's another thing. That's another
Right.
thing, because I was thinking about this today. This came up today in my mind. I forget what scripture it is, what verses it is or passage it is, but I think it's in one of the epistles where Paul is talking about how God has imprinted knowledge of him on everyone's heart. So we have no excuse. Every one of us knows that this God exists. This particular God exists because it has imprinted knowledge of it on every one of our hearts. And yet, why is it that religion has to continue to use these fear tactics to get people to believe?
Right. If
If
it's
we all just know it like it's a fact and it's something that we don't actually have to believe, because when you don't have to believe in facts. If it's there, if the evidence is there and there's no disputing it, you don't have to believe in anything. And
right,
yet they are scaring people into belief by pushing this
right,
idea, this angry God character that no one's ever seen or experienced. But yeah, he's out there and he's pissed.
right.
You
Oh,
better
and
get
see,
better get on board. But yet somehow we all know that he exists out there.
no, and that's perfect. So again, it's fun doing this on Sunday night after Aaron Townsend has done his live during, in the morning on Sunday, because that's exactly what Aaron hit on. So everyone go back, find Aaron Thompson, YouTube, Facebook, check it out. But the mystics throughout the ages, different cultures, different times, different places, when human beings have just quieted themselves, contemplated, and trusted themselves, and just what comes to mind, you are seeing a consistent message. And guess what? Hooray for the atheists! It's the same message that now quantum physicists are starting to tell us,
Right.
that this field, the quantum field, it's all seems to be the same thing. Possibly, we don't know yet. It's interesting. So I mean, but they're right there. So there's wonderful logic. Well, I did what the Bible said. I did reflect on all that. We listen to people who've done the comparative religious studies and their findings, and thought it through myself, and there it is. There is the truth. And that God, guess what? There is no wrath. There is no anger.
Right.
It's just compassion. It's just love. It's just your highest and your absolute best when you can just relax and be yourself, and just allow yourself just to, you can say connect with it. You can say relax and let your intuition come alive. When you can say you can relax so you can think clear, whatever you want, however you want to call it. But it's
Right.
all about becoming a fully alive human being that's enjoying this time on this planet and growing. There it is.
Right.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
There's your gospel.
And the other thing is, it doesn't have to be black and white. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be this or that. You don't have to be a full blown religious person or an atheist. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Right.
I mean, you can be somewhere in the middle there. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I mean, at this point, I drift between casual theism and curious agnosticism, because I believe there's something more. I mean, I believe I'm receiving these downloads of inspiration to be able to put together my writings, because sometimes this stuff just like comes together just out of the clear blue sky.
Yeah.
It's so weird. Sometimes I'll be inspired by something somebody says, and the wording just starts like literally like just coursing through my brain, and I'm just like, okay, and I have to type it out right then, because that's when it's like really really grabbing me. And sometimes I'll like write 3 or 4 of these musings in the same day within a couple of hours of each other.
Awesome.
And so like that's another part of why I'm going to start doing 2 a day, because they're starting to pile up so much that it's like I don't want to keep them saved for too long at the risk of them getting lost or something. So I want
Yeah.
to get them out faster. But I don't want to bombard people either. That's why I think I'm going to just ease into this whole each day. It's going to be 2, one in the morning and one in the evening. And if the readership grows, if people are happy with what I'm doing, maybe I'll start doing 3 a day and just see where it goes. But I mean, as of right now, I mean, as long as I'm receiving these downloads, I'm going to keep doing it. And I do feel inspired, and I do feel like there might be something greater, something more that
Yeah.
is helping me along. But I don't feel like this something more wants me to worship it and grovel at its feet and fear it, be fearful, the fear of God. I mean, that's just, it's not the fear of God leads to wisdom, it's the fear of God that leads to insanity. You get so paranoid and so superstitious, so hysterical
Right.
when you think that this God is constantly watching you and thinking about your every move and what it's going to do to you because of them. It's just, it's no way to live. But
Right.
you can still entertain the notion that there is divinity out there without it
Yeah.
having to be this anxiety ridden anxiety riddled experience, you know.
Yep. Yep. And
So
so it's almost like we've been given all this fear. What's the cure to all this fear? Start expressing yourself. I mean,
yeah,
it's just right there, right?
yeah,
You
and
start letting
it's
it
a
out
release.
there. This is and you just, you know,
It's a
become
release.
who.
These questions that you didn't feel like you could share with anybody, and the more you release them, it's almost addictive.
Yeah.
It almost feels like I can't go a day without asking a question anymore. I can't, and I'm not
Be-
afraid of who
No,
might see
because
it. I don't care. I don't care.
to express, I think that's what it is to be human.
Yeah,
Part of what it is to be human, I think for sure,
I want to
is that
know.
ability to express ourselves.
Yeah, I want to know the truth. I want to, you know, I
Like,
said before I'm issuing a challenge to this wrathful God, but really, I mean, honestly, I'm just putting it out there that if there is something beyond all of, I want to know it. I want to experience it
yep.
fully, and but I come with awe and excitement instead of like this fear of judgment.
Absolutely. There you go. That's about right. Well, I always like to try to keep these buttoned up to about an hour. It makes my wife happy when I can
Yeah,
wrap it up. And any other thoughts you want to share? I love that. I think that's just a great. It feels like a nice place to button it up.
yeah. I think we're good.
So get out there for everyone. Express yourself. Take fear into account. Be smart about it, but allow yourself to express yourself more and more, and open yourself up, and then have more courage to do it even more. And then the fear will subside, or you'll be able to overcome it. And that's where life is found, man.
Yes, embrace authenticity. Be as genuine as possible. Express yourself. Express yourself because you are you, and you're the only you, and you have something to give the world. So
Yep. And when you
put it
do
out
that,
there
when we all do that, it makes the world a better place. So that's why it is so important to just stay curious.
because thinking is awesome.
Absolutely fucking lootly. All right, man. Good talking to you, Ben.
All right. Thank you, Daryl.
You
Have a
guys have a
great
great
night,
night.
buddy.